Dan RadioStyle. Hope everybody out there's having themselves a great day. Something fun is, man, so I'm probably going to somehow try to spin this onto the second channel that I've started, but I haven't put any videos on it yet, so I haven't really plugged it. This is kind of sort of the first one, so I'm not sure if this is going to be released there, and then I'll do a snippet to my main audience, or I'll do something that's a little more long-winded over there. But either way, I think I'm going to try to finally cross-channel promote on this particular video. So for those of you that are kind of into the more esoteric, little more crazy, some of the conspiracy, maybe some of the magic, past lives, soulmates, like some of that stuff that's a little more outside the norm of law of attraction. I'm kind of going to have a channel where I'm going to get into those topics a little more freely. I just don't like necessarily polluting the law of attraction channel. I get some weird, some people really love it, don't get me wrong, but then there's a large chunk of people that I think it actually puts them off a little bit, so I don't want to really ruin a good thing with something that I'm just passionate about. So this one's going to be a little bit of a crossover because in my mind it is a crossover thing. How law of attraction is used against us. It is used against us. There are many, many, many studies done on how law of attraction works, and the concepts of it, and how there is some serious validity to it. I'm not saying that all you got to do is think positive thoughts and you can have whatever you want. No, I'm not saying that. There is more to it than that. But what law of attraction really speaks to, for those of you that are maybe newer to the topic, law of attraction deals more with what we focus on is what we put power towards. What we focus on is what we're going to create more of. I'm not saying just be positive and everything can happen the way you want, because if your beliefs don't agree with what you're thinking about, then you're going to be sort of in a disharmony as far as your head and your heart aren't necessarily aligned. So really, you can say positive stuff all you want. You don't really believe it, so your focus isn't really correct. I'm not trying to get too terribly deep down that rabbit hole, but focus-based universe. What we focus on is what we put power towards and what we create more of. Now, there's basically two extremes, and a lot of this has to do with, I want to say, some of the divide that's going on, or at least that I'm seeing portrayed in the media. And that's a key point, by the way. And I'm not saying left or right side, because there's, like, here in the United States, you got, like, all the mainstream news media, and then you got Fox, right? And Fox is the very more right-leaning, I guess, and everything else seems to be very left-leaning. And there's a reason, in my opinion, why there's only one station that tends to be right-leaning, and there's a slew of other ones that are the other direction. And again, not saying right or wrong, and I actually sit outside of it. I like to come at this from more of the angle of I kind of understand what they're doing, and I understand that both sides are doing the same thing. I don't see any difference, frankly, between the two sides. I see a path forward, and there's things I'd like to see us manifest as a world, as a government in the United States here. I mean, there's a lot of things I would like to see happen. But the way things are playing out is very heavily divided right now, and that is by plan. The plan is to keep us divided. So the two extreme sides that exist right now, basically, and again, I work for one of the larger media companies in the world. Don't want to say who, and I'm not saying that I am directly in the mix and I have like my finger on the pulse of like upper management's choices, right? It's not like that. But I am not coming at this in a void. Like, I've definitely been in radio. I've spent time in media. I get it. I get a lot of it anyway. So there's the side that everything's wrong and it needs changing. And that's a lot of the stories are typically focused on a very, this is broken, this is broken, this is broken. We need to fix all these things. Not how are we going to fix it, but this is broken, this is broken, this is broken, this is broken, and we need to fix it. So all you're constantly bombarded with is how nothing's really going well, nothing's really going right, nothing's good. Everything kind of sucks. Okay? Then you've kind of got the other extreme to that, which is everything's perfect, and it's been perfect for years, and don't mess with it. Don't break, don't, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's what they say in the South typically, right? If everything's great and hunky-dory in my life, and I've got all this great stuff in my world, and I don't want to give up any of it. I certainly don't want to have to give it up, right? So stop trying to take away what I've already got and give it to others, right? That's kind of really how the two sides seem to be playing at each other. Now, I would say, for the most part, most of us tend to fall really in the middle. And the middle's not a place, they always say if you're in the middle of the road, you get hit. I disagree, actually. In most cases, if you're in one of the lanes, you're going to get run over or hit. If you're in the middle, you're actually out of the way, really. Or in some cases, if you're on the absolute uber extremes, you're kind of almost out of the way. But it's funny is we've become so heavily divided and polarized that the extremes seem to be where everything is going. Now, I'm not trying to get into the politics of all this. I'm not trying to get into how you should think and feel, because frankly, that's your choice, and I don't want to necessarily affect that. What I do want to talk to, though, is how these news channels and news stories are meant to cause, one, divide, two, very strong emotional responses. From a law of attraction standpoint, that emotional response is actually powerful in the process of creating what you're focused on. So in the case of focusing on how everything is horrible, and now I'm angry about it, I'm actually creating more of that horror, more of that fright, more of that fight. As much as they said, well, this is horrible, well, the other side, because I'm so angry about it, the other side's probably going to do something that's even going to infuriate me more. Or the message is going to be portrayed to me in such a way that's going to cause me to be infuriated more. The more I focus on how horrible things are, and I'm so angry about how horrible things are, the more that it's going to seem like things are getting worse, and you're only going to get more and more angry about it. Now, to me, it's a spiral that's dangerous. Like I've suffered depression a number of times in my life, and the big thing that I took away from it all, once I kind of was able to make more sense of it and try to help guide my life in a better way, is I realized focusing on what I don't have is what usually led me to depression or depressive thoughts that then spiraled me into a negative place. Or I could focus on the things I did have that were working for me, that are good. And I found that turned me around. That got me in a better feeling place. And I just felt better. I felt better because I wasn't focused on negative things. Negative energy does not feel good. Even if you think you like it and like being angry, most people truly don't. It's a state of being that they don't know how not to be. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. Again, trying to help understand how these things are used against us. One of the more powerful things you can do is to try to really stop taking everything that you're being told and accepting that that is so. I guess the analogy, and I'm going to use an extreme one, and this isn't based off any real numbers, it's just more based to kind of show a point, and I think this is kind of how things are playing out right now. So you get 100 people to go see a movie. 100 people go see this movie, and you maybe talk to a bunch of them afterwards, and of all the people you talked to, you found 2 that hated the movie. Hated it. Hated it maybe even for some reasons that might make good talking points, maybe even politically good talking points. Somehow, whether it's pro-life or pro-choice is in there, mixed in somehow, right? Like, whatever. Like, they find some little thing that works as a good talking point. It's not really germane per se, but of the 100 people, and maybe the 20 I talked to, 2 of them hated it. So if I then take those 2 people's opinions, and that is all I report to everybody else that's out there, then everyone else that is viewing this report is under the impression that this movie is horrible. Horrible. Everyone that saw it hated it. Hated it so deeply. Hated it for this reason. Hated how it made them feel. Hated how it made this group of people look horrible. Just absolutely hated it. It's a horrible movie. You shouldn't see it. That is how the media works. It's not 50 of the people that went to the movie got interviewed, or 50 of the people that are experiencing a particular inequality in life. And what do you think about it? What do you feel about it? They grab 2 of the most extreme examples, and probably 2 that, like I said, speak to the talking points of the day. And only those 2 of the 100 are shared with everyone as fact, as here's how everyone feels. Many people were interviewed. Here's 2 examples. True statement. Many people were interviewed. Here's 2 examples. We didn't admit that the only 2 people that hated it are the 2 examples I'm going to share with you. And that's how media works. I'm going to give you guys a little hint. in radio. This is something for any of you that ever call radio stations to try to win something. And this is very true. And this is how it works. Still, you don't necessarily take 40 calls. Caller number 40, you're going to win a trip to the Bahamas. Caller number 40, call in right now. Right? Then everyone's like, oh my God, I want to be the 40th caller. I don't want to call too soon because then I might be like early. And if I call too late, then I'll be late. How do I do this? Oh, well, I'll just try to call and see if I can even get through. Now, the reality and how it really plays out if you're trying to call into a radio station, here's the trick. If, there's a big if they pick it up and don't instantly somehow tell you you're not qualified. So let me give you an example of how we frequently did it when I was on the air and we were giving away prizes, right? I'd be like, all right, caller number, 85 or whatever the heck number, right? First call I pick up, your caller number 7. Next one I pick up, your caller number 16. Next one I pick up, your caller number 30. Then from there on out, your caller number, and you see their reaction. If they're boring, your caller number 22. If they're excited, crazy, gonna help you sell whoever the advertiser is that gave you this free stuff, if they're gonna be like, oh my God, I never win, that person is going to be the one you choose. So, if you ever get where you can get through, first. Second off, if they pick it up and don't immediately tell you you are not the loser, like, basically there's a chance, or you don't know, go crazy. Start being crazy. Start saying, oh my God, I've never had anything like this. You're the greatest radio station in the world. If you can talk like that, I guarantee you win the prize. That's how it works. That is how it works. When I was in radio, it was one of the sadder things to realize how much fakery and trickery there is just in radio. Now, you talk about TV, you've got a visual media on top of the vocal aspect. I assure you that things are not necessarily always completely transparent. Is it intentional? No, I don't think there's meetings. There were never meetings we had where they told us how to behave. The ones that figure it out tend to rise higher and faster and further than the ones that don't. And that seems to be how a lot of this continues and how it propagates. If it bleeds, it leads, is what they typically said, and that's still how media works. So how do they use law of attraction against us? They keep us focused on things that we don't want. They keep us focused on where we are right now. How somebody said something yesterday that should infuriate me today. How the sins of the past should still continue to bind me in the future. By stopping their ability to get you to focus where they want you to focus, and you decide to focus where you would like to focus. Maybe it is on political stuff. Maybe you try to focus on a slightly better spin on it. Maybe you're on one of the sides that's grumpy typically most of the time, but maybe now you're thinking of ways that things could be improved, ways that maybe a compromise can be made. I know with like England and Brexit and the European Union, there's a whole lot of stuff on both sides of that. And that's a fascinating discussion that's going on. But the way the media is playing both sides of that's the same thing. Here in the United States, politically, our two sides absolutely freaking hate each other. Hate each other. Like, there's some that have likened this to a civil war, or at least what possibly was going on in this country at the time of the Civil War, because there is such a strong emotional divide going on. Do we let someone else shift our focus for us? Do we let someone else tell us what we're supposed to think about or how I can make the world better? Or do we take that ownership ourselves and decide what we're going to focus on, decide what we're going to learn about, and how maybe there is a way to make something more green, or to do something this way, or to maybe there's a way, but now I'm focusing on a solution, or I'm focusing on the energy of how this can be better, rather than staying upset about how it is right now. By staring at our feet when we manifest, we don't get too far, because you might trip, you might fall. You're not looking out. You're not looking at what you're trying to accomplish in your life. Nobody has ever built anything wonderful and actually not stayed on focus, like going to the moon. We stayed focused on going to the moon. We couldn't do it at first. We were nowhere near able to do it at first. And it took a lot of money, a lot of science, and a lot of hard work. But it was always staying focused on where they were trying to go. They were trying to get to the moon. To be able to go to the moon, I got to ultimately get dudes in a rocket and somehow get them up in the air. I somehow have to get that rocket to orbit the planet. I then somehow have to be able to go further than that and push it out towards the moon. And then on top of all that, I need to figure out a way to get them back. Oh yeah, and now I want to try to send them out to the moon and actually give them an ability to land on the surface and come back with rocks and see if they're different. It was the focus on where they were going, not on the, we can't do that, we can't even go in the air. Yeah, we can't yet, but we're going to. No one gets anywhere by staring at their feet at where they're at right now. If we wish to take back our power, we need to stop giving our power to people outside of ourselves. Step number 1. Decide what you want to do. Decide what you want to think about. Decide what matters to you. And decide how you can make a difference rather than just being upset or just being, well, upset that everything sucks or being upset that everyone's trying to take everything from me. Let's focus on what can be better. What can I compromise on? What can I compromise on? There's things that I'm supposed to just outright hate, but I really don't. But my side hates that, so shouldn't I? No, you shouldn't. You should look at each and everything separately, and you might still hate it in the end. That's fine, but at least look at it separately from this group that we're a part of, this group speak that seems to be prevalent these days. Let's take ownership of our own lives, our own thoughts, our own abilities, our own manifesting. Let's realize that united, we are far more powerful as a group than we are divided. And if we want to actually see things get better on this planet, specifically the planet, maybe even better in your country, my country, whichever country that is, we're not going to do that by being divided. They like us divided. They want us divided. Who's they? I don't know. But divided, we're much easier to deal with than we are when we're united. If you want to have the power, unite, even with people that maybe have other areas of anger. Find things you can be consistent with. Find places where you can cross the aisle. Figure out ways to make things better rather than worse. Because no matter what, as divided as we are, we're not going to get anywhere being that way. It just doesn't work. Hopefully this helps. Not sure what channel this ends up, but if it is on my newer channel, please subscribe if you haven't done so already. I appreciate that. Do the little bell icons, and when I do more videos, I will notify you. And we're talking topics that are going to fall into all sorts of crazy stuff, esoteric, maybe even some of our secret technologies, space programs. We've got some very interesting stuff that I love to talk about. And I'm going to try really hard to kind of come at it from the middle. Like there's places where I definitely believe stuff that I'm probably crazy for, and I outwardly admit it. And I get what the other side's saying, and I'm happy to speak at it from kind of the center. This is why some people believe it. This is why others don't. This is why I do, maybe. I don't know if my belief matters at the moment. But hopefully we get some really, really cool topics, and it gives me a chance to talk about things that are a little outside of what my other channel is, which is very specifically law of attraction and how to manifest and how to change. And by the way, if you want to check that out, it's Dan RadioStyle. It's another channel I have. If you're really interested in manifesting and different manifesting techniques, highly recommend that channel as well. Appreciate each and every one of you. If you would like to support my channel again, sharing, liking, commenting, all those things make a huge difference. And of course, if you can watch my videos, that's always extremely helpful too. My name's Dan, and I appreciate each and every one of you. Dan RadioStyle is what I like to go by, but different channel, different day, who knows. But look forward to doing more great videos for you guys. Thanks. Appreciate it.